Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, welcome, Brewer fans of Brew Crew Review Podcast. Joining you today is Craig and Vince. How are you doing, Vince?
I'm doing fine, man. How are you, Craig?
All right. So today is August 10th. We're about a week past the trade deadline. We're going to talk a little bit about what the Brewers did at the trade deadline and where we sit here going forward as we enter late August, early September, and the 2023 MLB pennant races. So I guess for starters, Vince, I guess maybe I'll just do a quick recap instead of going through each individual trade. I'm going to talk about the players that the Brewers did bring in. And so we'll start there. So they basically made 5 smaller trades, and these are the players that we received. Our first trade, we acquired switching first baseman, veteran, 37-year-old Carlos Santana from the Pirates. Our second trade, we acquired Mark Canha from the New York Mets, outfielder. And then our third trade, we acquired left-handed pitching, back of the bullpen arm, Andrew Chafin, who I think was predestined to become a Brewer, given his physique.
Totally agree.
And then we also then traded 2 lesser, I shouldn't say lesser players, but we traded Louis Urias to the Boston Red Sox for a prospect named Bradley Blaylock. I think he's at AA now, and right-handed pitcher. And then we also acquired from the Rays, Evan McKinstry, who's also a right-handed pitcher that we sent to AAA for Alex Jackson, who I was actually surprised was still even in our system. So those are acquisitions, a couple of prospects. Unfortunately, we said goodbye to Louis Urias. The prospects that we gave up in the other trades, I think, were minimal as far as like taking a hit off our top 10, top 20 prospects even. So overall, I think we are expecting it to be underwhelming, and our expectations were met. Thank you very much, Brewers front office. That's my take on it, Vince. What are your feelings overall?
I remember our pre-production meeting here, our conversations around the deadline. I think I'm a little happier with it than you were, or what you expressed in our pre-production meeting. I think that, some of the guys that I had really wanted ended up not moving. So I don't know if maybe teams were asking too much. I think that, like many Brewer fans, one of the names that I really, really wanted us to pick up was Eloy Jimenez from the White Sox, who ended up sticking with the White Sox. I liked him just because he was under team control for beyond just this season. And I was thinking he could plug right into, our lineup as primarily a designated hitter and, fill a couple needs there. But, the fact that he didn't move tells me that perhaps the White Sox wanted more than would have been wise to give up. I'm all for the go for it mentality, as you know. I do think that we need to be very aggressive. When it comes to the deadline, I've been very critical of the Brewers at previous deadlines, specifically last season's. In 2022, but I'd say overall this season I'd give the deadline a C+, B-. I'm not terribly excited about Mark Canha or I guess I am more excited about Chafin, I should say that, and I think that Carlos Santana at first base is probably one of the better bats that we could have picked up for especially what we gave up for him. So I'm going to go with a B- overall.
Okay. I guess I'll go, I don't know, we're giving out exact grades, but I guess I'll give it like a C+ overall. But I mean, there's just nothing exciting. I mean, the great thing is that I don't think we really gave up much, but I mean,
right.
In my opinion, this is when are we going to use our prospects to improve our ball club? I mean, when you're sitting at first place a year out of 3 of your best players hitting free agency, you're staying in first place at the trade deadline. If now's not the time, when is? I don't get that. And there's
Yeah.
some guys, like for instance, our breakout prospect this year in the minor leagues is Tyler Black, who's a second baseman that was drafted a couple of years ago, had a phenomenal season and really upped his stock. Now he's kind of blocked at the major league level. Obviously, second base is probably going to be controlled by Terang. Obviously, if we lose Adames, he can move over to shortstop, and we would need Black. But in my opinion, that role could be filled in the future with like a veteran free agent signing or something like that. So why not cash him in, selling high, so to speak, on his minor league season, and try to bring in a better bat to help us this year? Again, I don't know what was out there. Obviously, it's just speculation. Maybe Jimenez was too cost prohibitive, like you said. But overall, it just seemed like for instance, the Cubs, who again have already tasted success much more recently, than us, World Series wise. They're a bigger market team, and obviously they have no problem getting rid of their top prospects. They brought in probably one of the best bats at the free agent, at the trade deadline, and Jammer Candelario, the third baseman, and so they vastly improved their offense just like that, no problem, no hesitation. They just did it, and I feel the Brewers could have done the same, and then they didn't. They decide. So I mean, to me, it's just very frustrating because you've got this front office that's not only hitting the bargain bin during the off-season free agency period, but they're also hitting it at the trade deadline when they're sitting in first place. To me, it's just uncalled for. I don't know.
Yeah, I share your frustration with that, and with the front office generally. I have, said that before as well many times on our podcast. I do question who exactly was out there and available. I guess that the Cubs gave up, I think, 2 top 20 prospects for Candelario, but maybe that would be worth it. They are able to absorb things. I'm not just talking about prospects given up in a trade, but they can replace those prospects by signing free agents in a way that the Brewers probably can't. So I don't know how smart it is for the Cubs to always go all in. We've seen that backfire already since this deadline with the Angels. But to your point, Candelario, Scotty's interns, and maybe Scott is Scott on today, by the way?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, Scotty's interns are handing me something. Candelario is hitting .485 since the deadline for the Cubs. So obviously, that trade is so far at least working out for Chicago. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that we need to be as aggressive as possible, particularly when we are in first place, particularly when we do have Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns, who are free agents after the 2024 season. So, essentially we've got now this window of this year and next year to compete with them before they hit free agency. So yeah, I would have gone, quote unquote, all in a little bit more, with the caveat being that, again, I don't know that we want to include guys like Jackson Churio in a deal if that's what it was, going to take to get Eloy Jimenez. I don't think I would have done that. So I don't know that there were a ton of bats that moved at the deadline. So I guess that's part of my caveat as well, is that, I didn't see a ton of guys that I would have taken. Candelario is one of those guys, but I didn't see a ton of guys that were moved that I would have given up a ton of prospect capital for either.
That's true. There just wasn't that many impact players to bring in. So
we didn't see like last year, Craig, we saw like Juan Soto get moved at the deadline. We saw a number of bigger names that got moved, and this year again, I just didn't see it. I wish that there may have been a heftier market, and that kind of speaks to baseball's current second wild card and postseason structure, where more teams are in it. So you're going to see less activity, I think, or less bigger activity at the deadline, more tinkering.
Yeah. So I think the saving grace for Brewer fans, this trade deadline wise, was the fact that the other teams that were competing against in the NL didn't do a whole lot either, especially the NL Central. So I think that definitely works in the Brewers' favor here as we go forward. The shocking one to me is the Cincinnati Reds. They were in first place right around the All-Star break, and they were, I know, the first Friday game against the Brewers at home, coming out of the break, and I think they had a sellout crowd, and then their fans are hungry for winning baseball, and they really did nothing, and they went out and got like a left-handed bullpen arm. That's about it. They did nothing to solidify the rotation, and so I think they're going to suffer because of that. The Cubs obviously got Candelario, and they improved themselves, I believe. But the Dodgers, who unfortunately got thwarted by Eduardo Rodriguez, not accepting the trade or to the Dodgers because he had veto power over that and his contract. So, but they did add Lance Lynn to the rotation, and they're going to get some other guys healthy, like Walker Buehler possibly coming back for the playoffs. So, I mean, but with that being said, I would expect the Dodgers have done a little bit more. So they didn't do too much either. Atlanta Braves didn't do a whole lot. I think the Marlins were pretty aggressive. They added Josh Bell and Jake Berger to their offense. And again, those are some guys that I think are better than guys we acquired for sure. And not only that, but younger and controllable. So I think they were really smart and did some nice moves. And all the other teams kind of on the fringes of the wild card race in the NL made tinkering moves, but nothing real big and splashy, like you said. So overall, a lot of big names went to the AL teams. As we know, both Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander got traded over to the AL, the Astros and the Rangers for that big pennant race. But and overall, yeah. So I think that really works in the Brewers' favor going forward. And here we are, a week past the deadline, and the Brewers are still sitting in first place, 2.5 games up on the Cubs and Reds. The Cubs have had a really nice week since the deadline, so they're seeing their dividends pay off right away. The Reds have gone 2-8 in their last 10 games, and you know they were right on top, and now they're falling back. And I think that they're going to be. To me, it seems like, well, I guess I'll throw it out there to you. Which team worries you the most going forward? The Cubs or the Reds as we battle out for the NL Central?
Short term, the Cubs. Long term, the Reds. So yeah, I think that this season.
Well, yeah,
I think that the Reds have a talented club. I actually really think that the Reds' talent level is pretty significant, and I do think that long term they are going to be major players in the National League Central Division. But I do think that they were overplaying over their heads a little bit at times this season. I think that their starting pitching depth may not be quite there yet. I think that they've got a lot of young players, like we do too. But I think that they're maybe a little bit further away, perhaps, in some of their trajectories. So I definitely am viewing them long term as a bigger competitor than the Cubs. But yeah, I think this year the Cubs have kind of caught fire at the right time for them. So I would probably say the Cubs out of those two teams.
Yeah, and obviously just concerned for this year and winning this division. But I mean, yeah, you're right about the Reds. The difference between us and the Reds, I think, is a lot of our talent is at the hitting level, and theirs at the pitching. Their young talent, I should say. And so, in my opinion, that gives us an advantage because a lot of times the young hitters like Frelick and Terang and Weimer and all that stuff can come in and hold their own, so to speak. Obviously, they're going through some struggles. But when you're talking about young pitchers, it usually takes them a number of years and a lot of experiences, innings pitched at major league level to really kind of find their groove to become an ace or a really quality pitcher. So the Reds do have some really high upside arms. When you got talking about Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and Andrew Abbott, those guys are probably all have ace potential. And the Brewers aces, on the other hand, are already veterans. When you're talking about Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta, and then throw Miley into that mix is a great fourth starter, whatever. And the Brewers, I think, have a huge advantage in starting pitching, and they also have pretty big advantage still in the bullpen. The Reds bullpen has been sneaky good. Obviously, Alexis Diaz, Edwin Diaz's little brother, has had probably one of the best years of any closer in baseball this year. And then Lucas Sims has been pretty solid. And then they added Sam Moll from the A's to their bullpen. But overall, I still think we have a better bullpen too. So, but there's no doubt that they have better offense than us right now. But some of theirs is aging too, with Joey Votto in there, and some guys are just having career years for them. But overall, I think that really it's the Cubs and us probably coming down the stretch. And we do play, I think it's either 6 or 9 more games against the Cubs. I think it's 6 home and away. We have a series. So in Chicago and Milwaukee. In fact, we end up the year final 3 games of the season at AmFam Field. Cubs Brewers. It could come down to that series. I hope not. I hope that we pull away before that period of time and they fade away, but we'll see.
When does that ever happen in Brewers history, Craig? When have we ever been able to casually walk into a postseason scenario? I guess maybe 2011, but even then the Cardinals were unfortunately getting hot and ended up beating us in the playoffs. But yeah, I have a feeling, I just have a feeling it'll come down to that last week per usual. And Yeah, you're right. We've got the Cardinals and the Cubs at home that last week of September.
Yeah, and I can't believe it's been 15 years since our wild card championship win against the Cubs in 2008 when Ryan Braun hit that home run on the game of the year to get us in the wild card spot. So against the Cubs at home. So it'd be nice to,
Yeah, for sure. Hey, speaking of that, I did see something too from one of our colleagues. I think it was Adam McKelvey. CC Sabathia coming back to AmFam Field in late August here to celebrate the 15-year anniversary of that 2008 team. Going to be throwing out a first pitch. I believe it's August 25th or 26th against the Padres at home. So that should be a fun one to go to. So any fans that are listening to us up in Milwaukee, I would definitely put that on your calendar. I would certainly do it if I was in Wisconsin.
Cool. Should come back for that weekend. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that actually does sound awesome. So yeah, maybe. But yeah, so in any event, that was some news recently out of that 2008 team. But yeah, I can't believe that was 15 years ago already.
Hard to believe. But yeah, no, I mean, it just seems to me that this was the year the Brewers need to push their chips to the middle of the table. We're sitting here in first. I don't think the Braves obviously are the best team in the NL, and it's not even really close. However, I've gone over this many times, but with the Brewers top of the rotation pitching, I think that gives them an advantage in a short playoff series for sure. I mean, it really just comes down to pitching, and obviously the Braves have unbelievable hitting and everything, but I really think that the Brewers have a really good shot but they've got to get into the playoffs. I'm
still pretty confident in our ability to get in. I will say this: we were not competing with the Braves. Obviously, in our two series against them this season, I think we're 1-5 against Atlanta on the season. But that being said, I would like to have that series with our pitching, our starting rotation intact. When we're not throwing out Colin Ray, all due respect, to lead off a series against the Braves, and when we're not having to kind of sub guys in from not only the bottom of our rotation, but really from our like 7th to 8th position of depth organizationally, pitching wise. So I would love to stack up, Burns, Woodruff, Peralta in a, best of 5 game series against Atlanta. I think that would be interesting.
And I think Julio Teheran pitched one of those games against the Braves too. And I mean,
not only pitched against him, but he was injured. Yeah, he was injured during that game too. He got lit up.
Yeah. So we definitely did not come at them with our best during our series against them pitching wise. And I think again, we'll be lined up for that if come playoff time, if indeed we have to, line up against the Braves, knock on wood, health permitting. And that's the one thing with Woodruff coming back now, as we remember all the way back 15 years ago in that 2008, where we were all just jazzed up to kind of be in the playoffs the first time. But in reality, had the Brewers been fully healthy that year, we would have not only had CC, who was supposedly like an automatic win at the time. We would have had Ben Sheets and Giovanni Garrido. Ben Sheets was injured at the time. Giovanni Garrido was just coming back from injury. So had we gone with like a real, still full stable of horses back then, I think we could have really been a surprise, make a surprise late run instead of ducking out against the Phillies during that first round series. But anyway, with that being said, not going back 15 years, this is a team that I think has a lot of talent on it. And I really feel that we're the best team in the NL Central going forward. And it would have been really nice to make us even better. But like I said, outside of the Braves, there's not other teams in the NL that really scare me too much that I don't think we could hold our own against playoff time. And so I think we just got to get into in the playoffs and hope the best from there. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a battle. Reds aren't giving up. The Cubs aren't giving up. The really good thing, like I thought that our only path to the playoffs would really be winning the NL Central. But if you look at the standings now, we're right in the pack with the NL. There's 3 teams in the NL that'll make the wild card spots. And I think we're right in that mix of about the same number of wins as those guys. So if we happen to not win the NL Central, there's still, I think, a chance that we could also get one of the wild card spots. With that being said, I think that if we're gonna have to play well from here on out, and which will probably propel us to the division win over a wild card spot anyway. But we'll see. It would also been really, really nice. It's a huge advantage for the top 2 with the new playoff format featuring 12 teams, 6 in each league. It's a huge, huge advantage for the top 2 record-wise division winners, because they get not only do they get a first round bye, but then they get to host the second round series, the National League
Right.
Division Series. And so that even it's looking like if the Brewers win the division, I mean, they're probably going to be the 3rd division winner, and they're going to have to play that first round 3-game series. That the nice part about it is they'll get to host all 3 games at AmFam Field right when the season ends, and we just have to win that series to advance. But I think we're 5 or 6 games behind the Dodgers for that second division best record. But if we could somehow catch the Dodgers or whoever wins the NL West for the second, that would be the second best record. That would even be better. And again, to me, that out there as like a carrot to kind of get as a goal would have been huge for us to try to really, really improve this team to get to that level, because it'd be a huge advantage come playoff time. But again, we did what we did at the trade deadline, and nothing too splashy. No offense to Mark Hanna. He's got great plate discipline. I'm sure he's a hilarious guy, but really not a difference maker. He's not moving the needle in any way, shape, or form. With that being said, I've heard that Carlos Santana is an awesome clubhouse presence. Andrew Chafin, like I said, is a nice lefty to bring in the bullpen with some experience. There's a possibility that Aaron Ashby would come back and help out a little bit in the bullpen as a lefty as we go down the stretch here. And really, I do like, we have a pretty decent amount of rotation depth now with Woodruff coming back, in my opinion. Hopefully Colin Ray doesn't have to make too many more starts. No offense to him or his family or anything, but I mean, the reality of it is, I don't want to call him like the Jason Alexander of this year, but he did an admirable job filling in when we really needed him to eat some innings. But he's not one of our 5 best starters, in my opinion, going forward. So hopefully we can continue having excellent health, especially in our starting rotation. So we could ill afford to lose one of our big guys. So.
Yeah, and I am worried that does happen again. Hopefully not, but you just never know. We've experienced so many injuries this season. Let me ask you this, Craig. We had talked before the deadline, but I mean, were you surprised that we weren't more active? That we weren't more active at the deadline. I guess it just seems to me like, history has taught us, and I guess maybe this was Matt Arnold's first deadline, so there's that. But it just seems like we are not that team that goes out and has a big deadline. We just aren't. We have tried, I guess 2018 maybe the last season that we really tried that, and then there's other examples. Again, we talked via text or for our pre-production meeting during the deadline day, but I guess 2008, maybe 2011 to a degree, 1982, 2018, those were probably our most active deadlines, and as you pointed out, those are the years that we were most successful. But it just seems like there's not a huge track record of quote unquote going for it at the deadline, and we've been contenders now for a number of seasons where we haven't really done much. I guess, did it surprise you that we didn't do more?
No, it didn't surprise me, but it slightly disappointed me. So it's basically just what I expected, and like you had guessed, that we're not going to do anything too splashy. We're not going and so basically we plugged in some of our weaknesses with some veteran depth, and that's about it. I mean, that's kind of what I expected us to do. So we didn't take, the good part of it is that we didn't take a hit to the farm system. But again, I'm someone who's willing to do that in this situation, but you just never know all the particulars behind the scenes and who was available or what was offered and all this stuff. I am disappointed that we did make a trade with the Red Sox and didn't bring back Bobby Dahlbeck, who I really like as a future controllable piece for us on the corner infields. But so I mean, really, the prospect that we got for Louis Urias basically is probably about as good as the one that we got for Alex Jackson, who I didn't even realize was still in the system. So
Jackson had a nice year for the Sounds. I think he was their starting catcher for most of the season. He was great. Yeah, but I don't know that.
And the Rays wanted to add him for some depth, and they had plenty of pitching depth at AAA, so we got a decent prospect who I kind of like. Yeah. As a back end starter going forward. So you can never have too many arms, especially for rotation depth at AAA. So that was a win-win for both clubs, probably. Well, anyway, I think that we did sell low on Louis Urias, and I feel like he's going to still carve out himself a nice little career, whether it's with the Red Sox or on our team. I feel like he's going to be an everyday player somewhere going forward, and he's going to have a nice little career. And unfortunately, the Brewers are going to look back and say, I think we kind of sold low on him. But I get we were at that point. I just wish we would have got a little bit more for him. But that being said, Bradley Blaylock, I think, is a prospect with his arrow pointing up, and it was actually reported he was throwing like 97 to 99 miles an hour coming recently, which is an uptick in his velocity. So his ceiling probably increased a little bit. So I'm probably underselling him as well. So it's probably pretty good acquisition for Urias in the long run, but we'll see.
Yeah, and we had talked about the potential of moving Urias or Hura, I guess, at the deadline, and we had kind of gone through some scenarios. I think that Urias, again, has kind of relegated himself to being a platoon player at this point. I don't know that he's, and I say this liking him, I just don't know that he is ever going to be a starter at an infield position at this point. I think that his best role for any team is going to be in that platoon situation. So we'll see. I'm not upset.
I know we disagree on this. Like, I still think he'll have a better career than Bryce Trang. I hope I'm wrong, obviously, because Trang's in the Brewers and probably will be for the next 6+ years, hopefully. But that's my feeling on it, I guess. But hopefully I'm wrong, definitely. So
I like Trang's defense already so much. I like Trang's defense already so much that I don't know about offensive.
Yeah, his defense will keep him in the lineup. I guess I should put a caveat on that I think hitting wise, Urias will be a better player going forward, but I hope I'm wrong on that one too. Trang has shown himself in the minor leagues and has really been hitting well since he came back. So hopefully I'm wrong. And again, he's nice to have since he's got that shortstop ability to have Adames, possibly our future shortstop beyond Adames. And maybe allow us to trade Adames for a nice haul this offseason if that's what we choose to do or not. So that's a nice option.
This way, I love Urias, but he's hitting 169 on the year so far. So it's
I mean, I think it was a time for a change of scenery for sure for him. Like I said, sometimes you just have to sell low on guys like that, and I get it. So he didn't have a role with our team, so we had to move on from him. Definitely. So, but kind of, I think the X factors. I think the guys that'll make a difference, whether or not we really have a successful run here to the NL Central title or wildcard spot or playoffs, is not the guys that we've potentially acquired in Canna and Santana. I think they'll be factors and really be nice, solid plugins for our offense. But I really think it's going to be guys like Sal Frelick and Rowdy Tellez coming back that are going to have a huge impact on our offense. I mean, I think when Tellez comes back, he'll most likely platoon at DH or whatever. Obviously, because Santana will handle his better defensively at first baseman and is a switch hitter. So I think maybe you'll have like an Owen Miller or whatever, or I don't know, Taylor, a right-handed hitting platoon with Rowdy Tellez getting all the right-handed pitching at bats against at the DH. And I think he's going to excel in that role. As we saw his capability last year, he struggled pretty mightily against lefties this year, and I think he showed himself to actually be more of a platoon bat. But with his power, I think it's much needed in our lineup, and he could really make a difference maker. And obviously, he's a fan favorite. I think really, if him and Frelick have a nice last 6 weeks of this year, I think the Brewers are going to be in really good shape and a nice postseason. Because our offense definitely needed some fire to it, and I don't think that was necessarily the guys that we acquired, but adding a guy like Frelick and Rowdy Tellez back to the lineup, I think will really make our overall offense that much better. And as we see with our awesome pitching, it doesn't have to be that much better. I think we just have to score a little bit more runs each game, and we're excellent in low scoring games because of our awesome pitching on both the rotation and the bullpen. So
yeah, I just want to echo what you just said, quick, Craig, on Sal Frelick. It kind of goes without saying in some ways, but boy, has he been an exciting player to watch. I think you had called him the next Paul Molitor, which is huge shoes to fill, but at the same time, he does really ignite a lineup like that. He is a guy who you can sense the spark that he gives to a team. He's been really exciting to watch, and I think it goes without being said that any fan that's watching the team can see this, but he has really been just a pleasure to watch day in and day out with the Brewers. And obviously he'll go through his times where he's slumping and not contributing in the ways that he currently is at the plate or on the field. But I just know that just having his presence around seems like it's a huge boost for this team. So I'm really ecstatic about Sal Frelick, and he has been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, when you really watch him, you can just see how tough of an out it is, and every at bat he puts in is just a great at bat, and to me,
Yeah.
that's usually an indicator of a future star, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone that just puts in that great at bat. Looking back again, 15 years ago, Ryan Braun was, I think, in his second year. If you remember 2007 when he came up, you just knew every time he was up, he was putting in a good at bat and getting the bat on the ball and making something happen. And I don't know. Again, not to compare him to him either, because it's some lofty competition or comparison. As
Yeah.
Brian Braun's probably one of the best hitters beyond our two Hall of Famers and Brewers history, especially for sure of the last 25 years. So, yeah, I think Frelick is definitely going to he's got star potential, and I think we need him, and I think he's going to be a huge factor coming down and possibly, hopefully, he can stay healthy as well and in our lineup. Now, one thing I disagree. Craig Counsell has actually been sitting him against some lefties, which I'm sorry, but I disagree with. I mean, this guy is going to be a future everyday player for sure, if not a star, and he's going to need that experience against lefties. I'm not going to shield him against that right now. And again, Counsell is one of those guys that likes to get every bench player some at bats, and I get how that can be valuable. But when you've got this guy, you've got to give him every at bats. Period, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all on that. I totally share that perspective. I think that, there comes a point where you can over tinker. And I think that maybe that would be an example of Craig doing that. Obviously, I love Craig Counsell as a manager. I think he is probably the greatest manager in Brewers history, and agree with his on-field decisions 99% of the time. But I disagree with that as well. I think that Sal Frelick should definitely be in the lineup every day, except, the occasional day off like anybody, but certainly not because we're facing a lefty or just because we're facing a lefty. I think that, Sal Frelick, until proven otherwise, should be given every chance to play every day. And, as a rookie, you don't want to be pigeonholed into a platoon-like situation. You don't want to be a platoon player for your career if you're a guy with star potential like Sal Frelick has. This was the guy that, was our number 2 prospect at the time that he got called up. So, clearly the future is bright for this guy. And I think that we need to see what he can do against left-handed pitching as well. So, I get that there's a school of thought that says you kind of ease him into it. I can respect that, but I certainly don't want to be in a position where, we're going into 2024 and Sal Frelick has, 20 at bats against left-handed pitching or something. We need to get him some exposure right away, because you certainly want him facing tough lefties in the playoffs and being on the field. So yes, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Now, one thing I think Craig Counsell also needs to, besides he needs to get a new contract ASAP. I don't know what Mark Antonis is doing there, but he needs to be a longtime Brewer manager for sure. There's no other reason why. So hopefully that happens soon. But I think that he also needs to, I don't know if he's got our lineup right now. Again, obviously there's some new veterans or whatever, but Yelich has been awesome in the leadoff role, and his comeback this year is a huge reason why the Brewers are in first place. There's no doubt about it, because without his contributions on offense, I don't know where the Brewers offense would be. So he's been huge this year. Oh, go ahead.
Imagine Yelich hitting like he's hitting if Rowdy is hitting like he hit last year, or Adames is hitting like he hit 2 years ago. I mean, we've got these pieces that, God, if we could just get them all moving in the same direction at the same time, it would be so exciting. But I'm sure that there's like 29 other teams in baseball that could say that too. But yeah.
Yeah, but so the one lineup suggestion I have for Craig, and leave it or not, is I think Frelick really is going to be a future leadoff hitter, and that's where his best role should be. And Yelich probably has now earned his right to move back into like the 3-hole.
Yeah, I don't totally disagree. I actually was thinking the 2-hole for Yelich. I really like him in that position right now. I love the idea of having a Frelick Yelich 1-2 combo at the top of the lineup. That to me is ideal. I know it means shuffling some other guys around who are doing well in that role too, but I like that. I like that as our 1-2. I think that's
does it bother that they're both left-handed though? Like, would you like to split them up with a righty at all?
Not a ton, because I think that their splits show that it obviously it's a factor, but I don't think it's as big of a factor. You could move Yelich to 3, I guess, but I really like that look 1-2.
Yeah, Counsell really just strikes me as a hardcore play the percentage guy. He's almost not quite on the level of La Russa, but he's on the next tier down. Like, he really loves playing the percentages when it comes to the bullpen and lineup usage. And I get it. The numbers prove all that out. But overall, I think he's got to find the right mix here for this current incarnation of the lineup, so to speak. One of the real caveat before we wrap it up here, I want to give some more kudos to Wade Miley, because I mean, he was injured for a little bit. He came back and looked like he didn't miss a beat, and he's, I think, a huge valuable part of a rotation. And I will point out that I'm under a huge belief that the new rules in baseball, the speed of the game, actually play right into Wade Miley's strengths. Everyone knows he's a quick worker. Go to a game, you probably have it like 2-hour game or whatever. And with the new rules, and each player only getting one timeout per at bat, and having to keep himself in the box, so to speak, at all times, it really plays into Wade Miley's mastery, because I think part of his magic is his rhythm. And I think that the new rules play into his strength. And I think he's doing really well. So,
yeah, no, that is funny. We were told all that by our anonymous source, Tom Carter, when the Brewers re-signed Miley. I don't know if you remember that, Craig, but he had mentioned that too, that these new rules might be having an impact on some guys like Suter and Miley, who tend to work quicker. But yeah, that came from our anonymous source, Tom Carter, all the way back in January.
Yeah, no, again, last episode, I think we might have mentioned Tom's full name once again. And he did give me a quick call and said that two things. He said, one, stop saying my first and last name on air. And number two, he said, if you guys, after all these years, if you could please look up the definition of the word anonymous, he asked. So we'll get around to that. We've got our interns working on it right now, but thank you for the suggestions, Tom Carter. But we'll move forward here, and we're really looking forward to
I was given the definition by Scotty's interns, for the record, so I, for what it's worth. So if Tom or Mr. Carter or whatever we want to say, if he's upset at that, he can call Scotty's interns.
I have not looked it up, but I thought it meant a handsome man on a fast horse is what I thought it meant, but I could be wrong. We'll have to look it
up. Well, hey, it works for me.
Anyway, so no, I'm really looking forward to the Brewer pennant race here, and the Cubs are just going to push them down and run away with this division, and hopefully it will make things happen in the playoffs. So I'm really excited about the rest of the year. Hopefully get it up to Milwaukee to actually go to some games before the season is out.
Well, actually, on a personal note, I was gonna mention that maybe we'll tape before this, but Lena and I will be in attendance at the Brewers Rangers series here in Texas, which is starting next weekend. What is today? Thursday, as we tape this. So I know this weekend we're in Chicago, but a week from tomorrow we'll be heading to Arlington, and we're going to be at all three games. So we're excited about taking in a Brewers road trip this season. I think it's the only one that we've been able to get to. So we're going to be seeing the Brewers though at here at the ballpark in Arlington. It's not the actual name of the ballpark, but you know what I mean.
Awesome. And hopefully you guys make it up here to Milwaukee here in October or November as well.
Certainly for Brewers World Series, we'll be there. And if Scotty can confirm, his dog sitting schedule, I was thinking about coming up for a pseudo bachelor party in September. So we'll have to plan with Scott if he's not on the show today. Here, we'll just have to talk to him during our next show or during a pre-production meeting at some point.
Awesome.
Plan a weekend.
A pretty congratulatory best wishes to you and your fiance as well, Lena.
Well, thanks.
Congratulations.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, man. We'll definitely obviously have some conversations prior to that here on one of our shows. We'll have to invite her on as well to say hello. But yes, that is much appreciated.
So unfortunately, this is kind of sad, man. I have to let all the classy women in Wisconsin know that Vince is no longer on the market, so that's kind of sad.
It's a long
classy
time coming.
Women in Wisconsin. So anyway, stay classy, Wisconsin women, and go Brewers.
Thanks, Greg. Go Brewers. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Chad.